All right. Hello, and welcome to the Game Audio Hour, episode 191. This is a fortnightly podcast where we discuss all things game audio, from creative ideas to the latest techniques, project experiences to audio secrets. Here is where you'll find in-depth coverage and opinions related to game audio. You can see I'm Vincent Diamante over there, and then over there, my arm doesn't reach all the way over there, but that's Chase. Hey, what's up?
What's going on, Vince? How you doing?
Oh man, I'm doing okay. It's Monday. It's
Yes,
the
it is.
tail end. We're on the second half of the year officially. It's not just the second half of the year, but the peak of summer is now behind us, and I can't help but feel a little bit sad.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just thinking about this yesterday that things happened in January. I was actually at NAMM. I was actually in Boston for PAX East for my first PAX in February, and it feels like a whole nother year. Typically, this is the normal thing, right? Like you have the year is so long now. If you're doing so much, that half of the year feels like a different year. But this, whatever has been going on for this year, is definitely felt like a different year, especially if you were seeing people and you have gone out of the you gone on a plane earlier in the year and stuff. So it's
Yeah,
kind of crazy. And now we're entering fall.
I know it is so crazy, and I mean that's okay. You know, we can deal with crazy. You know, hey, it's games, right? Game development is honestly one of the craziest things that's out there.
Yeah,
If
that's true.
you're trying to get into this, you probably enjoy on some level a little bit of crazy, right? A little bit of crazy.
A little bit of crazy, just not too much crazy, just a little bit of crazy.
Oh man. Oh, hello, Michael Hoffman in the chat. PAX East was the last event that he went to this year. Um,
Yes, I saw Michael there actually. Shout out to you, Michael. Thanks for coming to say hello. It was good to see you,
oh man, and hello, Damien. Always glad to see you in the chat as well. Man, PAX East.
David.
I really wish I was at PAX East. I really wished I was at MagFest. I didn't do a bunch of game stuff towards the beginning of the year because of some other issues. Actually, I had to deal with family,
Yeah,
and that's been crazy. We don't need to get into that. But yeah, I missed out on a lot of these things. PAX East was the last major thing that happened really in the entire games media space
yeah,
before stay at home happened.
yeah. And it's crazy because, like I said, that was my first PAX, and I'm a part of that. It's somewhat historical almost. It was like this was the last thing before everything shut down. It's like, what? I was there. Like when you're there, it's almost you're just like, well, I can't believe that that's what it came to be. Like there has to be something else. There has to be another event. Uh-oh, did my video like blink out?
Wow, your video is doing something interesting.
You talk about crazy, and it's almost like saying the words BM. Go.
Oh wow, that is
So you won't talk about see, and I say BM when I come back. So that's
all right. Let's not go too crazy. But I did want to ask you though, like, what sort of stuff were you doing at PAX East?
I had a game. The game of ground that I was scoring was being demoed there. So that was the show that I definitely wanted to make because they were also indie mega booth for PAX West 2 years before, and I didn't get to make that. And so I really wanted to make this one to help out with the team since it was only like husband and wife, type of doing their thing and stuff like that. So
Right.
yeah, it was great. It was absolutely fantastic. Definitely
Okay.
blew up my budget. Might have not have made GDC, but things it was
Well,
fun.
that's okay. You know, it's okay to not save for GDC considering the current uh, the current GDC this year is very different from before. You couldn't spend $5,000 on GDC if you wanted to this year. So it's all right to not currently have stuff in the reserves there.
If
Um,
you wanted to.
Yeah. Oh man, Damien actually asked a couple of things here. Hey, there is GDC Summer Online happening next week, which is cool.
Yeah.
And they had a couple of interesting options there. I have to admit that I decided not to go for the relatively big purchases that you could do for the GDC Summer Pass. You could, if you wanted to, spend, I think, $200, $300 on a pass that will get you into a couple of different talks, as well as give you access to the GDC Vault for the remainder of the year. But I got to admit, it's just not necessarily feeling like that was quite right for me. So I just did a little free registration for myself. What about you?
Yeah, I have to admit, and I didn't sign up at all.
Huh.
Just I don't know. It's just a strange thing. There's so many other conferences that are way less expensive and people are getting a lot more out of, and it's like I can't justify sitting at this computer on this camera with you and saying I spent $300 on it. Like, yes, the vault is great; it's a good price for things. Yes, it's the lowest GDC prices will ever be, but also, as if you're freelance and stuff like that, we can't guarantee that you're gonna make that money back, really,
Right.
and yeah, just access for certain things. So I'm just probably going to spend my time just learning different things like tutorial stuff, like on Slate Digital or something.
Yeah, there is a lot of stuff to learn there. I will admit, I did recently purchase a registration to another game sound conference that went to an online only format, and that's Game SoundCon.
Mm.
That's going to be happening in October, and they are going to happen again, and it's going to be online only, and you can register. The cost of registration is a cool $25, which I'm pretty happy about. I think that's great. And in general, I find that Game SoundCon's programming has been very consistently good, dense, rich. There's always something in there. And so, I think that reputation plus the low price means I'm getting in on that. How about you?
Okay. So there will be an announcement sometime down the line about that. But
Oh,
all I will say for now is that yes, thank you for the amazing price of that, because that's extremely generous considering the price point of where it is in person versus like going online. And I think that is just fantastic and very onboarding and welcoming overall, especially for educational purposes of that nature. So that's all I'll speak about it on that front. But it's so great. I was dancing. I love it. Like that's what it should be. And yeah, people will
yeah,
definitely benefit.
that definitely feels right to me as well. So, oh yeah, Damien also followed up a little bit. He says, "What's the current vibe for online-based education and conferences?" And this is actually something that we kind of wanted to talk a little bit about today.
Hmm.
Man, I mean, in addition to all these conferences that are typically scheduled throughout the year, one trend that I've noticed are individuals or small consortiums that are setting up these different online spaces where you can do things, ostensibly for networking or ostensibly for education, soliciting feedback and whatnot. And there have always been a bunch of spaces for that on Facebook, hashtags on Twitter, but especially these Facebook groups. But now there's so many Discords that are out there that are started up by individual composers, producers that are just like, hey, you know me. We do stuff. We do music. We do sound. Do you have a demo reel that needs to be looked at? Check it out on this particular channel on our Discord. And on one hand, that feels really cool. I really enjoy the fact that I've been able to check out a couple of these Discords. Some of them are very new. Some of them are actually, older ones that have gotten a little bit of a refresh, and now people are paying more attention to it. They're a little bit more attentive to it throughout the day. That's really cool. But there's also so many Discords. I'm looking at my Discord app right now, and I have to scroll the heck out of that left column in order to see all these things that are really cool. I mean, I'm looking at this virtual audio con, this game audio LA, this composer questions. It's like there's so many things out there for game audio, game sound, game music.
Yes.
What's been your relationship like with all these different groups that are popping up?
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I actually did some culling and had to cut back on some. And I asked myself, which ones am I really a part of? And I even did some organization because I was thinking like, which ones do I want to be a part of? Which ones am I contributing to? Which ones can I contribute to throughout my day? Which ones can I pop in? Which ones have I not been a part of and I haven't been giving to? Which ones do I know I need to keep for later? And so I organize them from like, okay, this is the ones I definitely need to kind of see first and foremost, because you were saying if you scroll to the bottom or you have to scroll a lot, like things get lost. And if there, it's kind of like it's with so much going on in our lives, it's out of sight, out of mind. So you're just like, oh yeah, and then you forget. And then I realize how I can set up notifications for certain things because some of them are extremely valuable, like job boards and things like that. Like after the show, I realized there's an artist friend who's looking for some work, and I was like, hey, do you know about these Discords? They have these job things because I see them, but they may not. And that's my way of kind of like helping and giving back in that regard for the discords that are set up for those. And so just a little bit of management helped me so much. And now, like at least for mine, I just do one big scroll and then one up scroll, and I can see everything. And I'm happy to not even, it's such a big relief, I have to be honest, to not have so many of those that I were. And I know that I'm not going to be involved in all of them every single part of the day, but at least I know that I did my best for organization and the ones that I know I can give time to when I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's there's so many places where I want to give back.
There's a lot going on in this room today.
Yeah. Well, was there a Foley session that I missed out on? What's going on?
My books fell off my bookshelf to the right of me. So.
Oh man.
It's a live show. This is what happens. Any other time, this would not happen.
It's great. Yeah, that's cool. I should definitely do a same sort of organization culling thing as well. There's a lot of cool things happening on Discord. Yes, you mentioned jobs, and I think that is probably the one thing where if there is a pretty active job channel on that Discord, then, well, I mean, it's just sort of staying. It gets pinned basically to the top. And there's been some really cool stuff. I think in general, those job channels have been very active. Some of it is local and some of it is throughout the world, which is great considering everyone is sort of doing things from home these days too. Those Discord channels are pretty awesome. And I'm really glad to give back when I can. Let's see. I mean, Damien, thanks for just sort of prompting a lot of these ideas for conversation here. He says, with so much information readily available, with screen fatigue being a real thing, what is the value of participating in a real time during an event? He's he actually sort of answers for himself. I think it's worthwhile. These are pretty good answers. His answers: live broadcast. Topically relevant, spontaneous. Having that spontaneity is really important. Engagement with viewers and participation. Spinning off the topical discussion that emerges from the presentation topics, representing different perspectives. Man, that's really great. I got to admit, at GDC itself, one of my favorite things to partake in from a really good lecture is actually the follow-up. Hey, this is something that's really rich. We're going to continue the conversation in this breakout room. It's so fantastic when that actually happens. Right. And being able to do something like that in a live context is pretty cool. I've seen some stuff like that, but often with these live events on Twitch, some of the things that I've seen recently by Igda or iSig and stuff like that, they usually have a schedule that's pretty solid. So 12 to 1, this lecture, 1 to 2, this lecture. And maybe there's a break there, but it's just for lunch. But then it goes again to a solid 30-minute, 1 hour, 1 hour. Gosh, I understand the importance of having that programming there. But when you have that Twitch channel or Discord or whatnot, YouTube chat, you have this rich conversation that's actually there, prompted by the lecture. and there's opportunity for that stuff to flow over and let people just talk about things for the next 15, 20, 30 minutes. I think you should be allowed to do that. And actually, the programming of that next topic happening right at the hour or whenever, that sometimes actually gets in the way of it.
Yeah, it does. And virtually, I think the best approach, at least I hope that GDC kind of does, and I haven't done much of my homework, unfortunately. I've seen some podcasts kind of have people on that are part of the event programming for Summer GDC in terms of like how things are going to kind of work, which probably would have influenced my attendance, which I still can probably, still have time to do, is having I've noticed that for at least the audio talks, there is that kind of big gap. And if they do it right, then I'm going back to Discord, doing a breakout, having the Discord for whatever GDC thing, and then having certain rooms to be in voice chat to kind of just talk more about these, or someone prompting a Zoom call, and then the Zoom call being in the lobby, and then having a moderator being able to do like breakout rooms for those, which are extremely effective.
Right.
And having that with those conversations to have like 20-minute block periods of such, and then coming back in the lobby for, the overall virtualization will be tremendous, and I think very insightful for a lot of people overall.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Really agreed there. I think that would be fantastic. And I got to admit, I see things that are just sort of treading around the edges of that idea, but nothing quite like that executed successfully. But I think, give it a few more months, and maybe there will be some more effective use of this. Lectures, moderators, different rooms that people can break out into. I mean, there is space for that. Even in something like, something already established, like the Discord structure, where you can actually set up multiple voice channels and have people work that way, or maybe it is going to be on Zoom or Google Chat or something. It's easier than ever to set these things up, and I think we're just going to get better at it as time goes on.
Yeah, and a friend of ours, I think Sharon, had set up like that game industry VR type of thing a couple of weeks in a row now. Have you attended one of those?
I have not. That's mostly because my Fridays have been so crazy. So I mean, I could have joined, but I just wouldn't have been effective or participating in any way. So
True.
I thought I saw that, and I thought it was pretty cool. Hey, 24 hours. Here is your pub or cafe sort of networking atmosphere, and it seems like it would be cool. I would like to take part in it another time. I'm glad it didn't happen just once.
Right.
So I'm looking forward for the opportunity to participate in that again.
Yeah. Something like that is exactly what I'm talking about. Where isn't it's not totally like the breakout, but like how Damien is saying in the chat, like something like a happy hour or online meetup or things like that, and it's just chat only too, so you don't have to worry with. Voice channel, so you don't have to worry about typing of such, and it's almost self-moderated, if not all autonomically. Autonomous. That word doesn't make sense, but there's a bot.
Autobots wage their battle to the. Okay. Anyways,
I love it.
But this is cool. We've been going on this for a while. Let's stick on the education topic a bit, because for as cool as all the new stuff has been, I got to admit, sometimes I just want something that's a little bit more straightforward, a little bit more linear. And a couple of weeks ago, I actually found it in the form, I was going to say his name. It's Florian Titus
And
Delian?
did you forget the name, or you don't know how to say it?
I don't know. How do you say it? Because it's like Ardelian, or...
Okay. One of those, I think.
But yeah, Florian. Florian put out this thing, which is a really fantastic compilation of information regarding game audio, called The Bible of Getting a Job in Game Audio 2020 edition. It's big. Have you seen it?
I have seen it. It's on my Nook.
It's on your Nook?
Yes.
Holy crap, you have a Nook.
Yeah, I have. Am I pulling up old tech? But yeah, there it is.
That's cool.
It.
I haven't done that.
easier to
I
do.
actually do have an e-reader, so maybe I should do that. I mean, I've
I'm
just been looking at it every now and then on my computer, and
I'm telling you. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just saying, I'm nowhere near done with the whole thing because it's huge.
It is. I started it when it came out, and I'm on like page 112. And ironically, some of the articles I've already seen that have been kind of put into this collection by our peers and colleagues, and so it'd be interesting to see like other articles that I come across in that regard. But yes, I knew that I wasn't, and I did not want to sit at the computer, hence what Damon was talking about with that screen fatigue in the chat. And so for minimal screen fatigue, I can just go sit on the couch in my living room, or before bed I just turn this thing on and I'm reading it, and I'm reading it semi-voraciously. It's only because there's some good refreshers, especially during these times overall, as just to kind of, I do it as a comparison of like, what did I do when I started out, or where would I be, and did I do all those checklist things for the advice that comes through. But yeah, sitting at the computer and reading it is not efficient for me and not comfortable, and I don't think I would even actually be giving it that much attention to go through properly if I didn't put it on the Nook.
Okay, cool. I mean, when you say that you're on page 100, you mean you've been reading it in a linear fashion from page 1 to page 100? And wow.
Yep, O1. Yeah, I do that typically with any game audio literature that I'm ready to kind of embrace and get through, and it's part of doing my homework and my service. I feel, at least to the game audio industry and such. So I want to be well informed, especially with the latest text, of things that are kind of put out.
Yeah, that's really cool. I got to admit, whenever I come across something linearly, even though it is linear, one of the first things I do is flip around it. So it's like, oh yeah, scroll down to page 70 and be like, oh, what's going on here? And I actually have it open on another window here. It's like, oh, what's going on? Nepotism versus smart hiring. Ooh. Oh, how to stand out. Okay, working on your portfolio, scrolling down, do some super speed scrolling. Oh, what is this? Oh, recommended resources from designing. Oh man, every time I see designing sound mentioned, designing sound, you're cool, but yeah. I mean, that last post, designing sound. Yeah, I will always remember you. What is it? The website is dead. Long live the website. Yes. It's still there. I'm glad it still exists on the web, but yeah, there is so much cool stuff in this. So I got to admit, I haven't really done the thing where I sit down and just read a whole section from beginning to end. I've actually been looking at all these different things and seeing how many different approaches that different people have to something like getting your portfolio to stand out. And on that front, it seemed like everyone was pretty unified in what you do in order to get your portfolio to stand out. How do you actually focus on, and how do you communicate quality? And then there were a couple of other things that I noticed. For example, programming. How should you deal with programming? What does it mean to be a programmer, or when it is recommended that you be a programmer when pursuing sound design? And there were a couple of actually pretty different things, which I understand, having worked as a sound designer / programmer / technical sound designer for a number of years. Okay, that's an approach. That's a different approach. That's a very different approach, actually, some of these people. And I think that just sort of points to how this really great work that Florian did of compiling all this information, it's not necessarily the most unified set of advice that one could take. It's not perfectly coherent, perfectly unified and pointing in the right direction. But I think that also points to the fact that there is no such thing as a single right direction for all this. I mean, getting a job in game audio, oh my God, there's game audio, game audio, game audio, game audio, game audio everywhere. Woo-hoo.
Yeah. Yeah, you make a great point about it not being unified because all of us have had different paths in terms of how we got to the points that we are currently in our career, or things or projects that we have landed and have worked on, and there is no set path, there is no right path. It's your own path and your own path to be desired and to learn and to grow from. There's a lot of good. I want to give a couple shout outs, at least from thus far, that I've read in the collection. Is there was a couple articles from like Ashton Morris, who's a composer and a sound designer, and he actually listed and broke down. He went even further, broke down like these are the things I got jobs from in order of like what can like connections you can use your connections, and there's ads out there, and he's like, and he says haven't got much jobs from this, got like a couple jobs from that. It's so transparent, it's great. Ariel Gross wrote like a long piece, but it was so insightful for when they were talking about the process at being hired at Volition. And the one thing that stood out to me, and I tweeted this, I think a couple, maybe like sometime within the week, is that for those tests, they had switched to not having a video to just mitigate the unfairness of the gotchas. And in terms of like they send a quick like minute video of gameplay, and you have to create sound or music from everything to kind of have that. It's like, but did you miss the person in the background, doing laundry? Did you miss the dust particle happening, right there? Like obviously the things that you're supposed to focus on, you design for, but they switched from that to just having a creative brief and writing, and it expands their creativity, and they found more for the applicants to really tell the story through sound itself, through whatever you're doing, music or sound design. And I resonate with that so much, especially since bigger companies, and I'm going to just be open about this, they don't pay for these tests. And you're taking their time and you're doing these things, and everyone's got opinions about how these kind of things kind of go, but our time is our time. And along with that, the one thing I really want to mention is that it even goes further to say to the HRs, like, hey, get back to your applicants. Don't take 12 months to get back to somebody that had applied like that time ago, because people are looking for that work and they want to do it. And being open to saying, give me updates, and they understand that they're busy, and I'm with that 100%. I say all the time, hey, there's automation systems to say, hey, look, we reviewed, you're putting the time out there to review it. I understand it's oversaturated, but refining your process by having that creative brief is one way to kind of, also, have it down, understanding your time to like narrow it. It's like, okay, well, we don't have that much time. Give them 30 seconds for the brief to have that and put that. People who didn't follow the rules, they just are not in. And then having to say like, hey, we update on the process. Did you get it? No, we'll get back in a couple days or whatever, because their interview process for some of these studios are large. You have the applicant part, and then you have the test maybe, and then you have the phone interview, and then they fly you out. It's like, that's a lot of time to go through some things just to say you're hired. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just want to give like some shout outs for those. And Clark Wynn had some great insights too about like understanding your craft, not hopping on the train of like just always trying to do the latest thing. For what's hot right now for instrumentation, like really just creating what your sound is to be unique. So I just want to point those out.
Yeah, it's so there's definitely so much good stuff in here, and you know what? Maybe I will do what you suggest and go from the beginning and just go through it instead of like the current cherry picking that I do. Maybe putting it on my e-reader so that I'm actually reading it in bed might be the way to go about doing this. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whew. Going back to designing sound. I mean, designing sound was a fantastic resource for so many people and so many years, and it's still out there. It's going to continue serving us for a long time, but no new content. Damien is actually wondering, is there any current online destinations for new content? New content when it comes to learning about designing sound, because designing sound is not up there, but what's the first thing that comes to mind for you? Or I'm just going to throw it out there, Reaper blog. Since I am a Reaper person, and I'm actually only recently a Reaper person when it comes to both my music and sound, I've been getting on the Reaper train, just looking at how different people are doing things. Because it's such a big, robust environment of a DAW. You can script this, you can macro this, you can do these things with actions and just custom action this, which is not the same as scripting. There's so many different levels of stuff that you can do. So lately, what I've been doing is actually looking at Reaper specific stuff, and often that comes from Twitter, where it's hey, it's Reaper blog retweeting this or quote replying a certain thing, and it's been really cool to see other people use Reaper in so many different ways, and that just expands my palette of how I can do different things in Reaper. I've actually just started to do more power stuff in there, making scripts, doing more complicated actions in order to create different sorts of metadata for my sound and music. And honestly, there aren't any really good things that specifically say, hey, here is a tutorial for Reaper and metadata and using crazy actions in order to do this stuff. The information is all sort of distributed all around everywhere, and just sort of being attuned to what's going on, keeping your ear down to the ground and seeing what comes out of places like Reaper blog and Reaper's instances on Twitter has been really helpful for me.
That's fantastic. I mean, that Reaper community is just bolstering and getting more robust as the days go on. Typically, like I've only introduced people to Reaper, but I have not used it much myself. But I just introduced it because it just seems so welcoming. It's not that expensive. You just hop in, you get stuff going. I just did like a small tutorial for my best friend yesterday. He said, "Hey, I want to make music for my channels." And I said, "Okay, let's do this. You already own Reaper because you edit the podcast." And I was like, "Here's a couple free loops, royalty free loops, in the sense from like packs from like online somewhere." And he's like, "Man, I'm already like going this," but he doesn't even know. I was like, that you can do the scripting in the macro. He has no idea about VSTs. He doesn't know anything about mixing plugins. And I'm like, I don't have the time to really go into this. But here's a small loop you made in 10 seconds. You can start there. And then he was like, wow, I had no idea music was this. This is crazy. I don't think I want to do this anymore.
Oh man, you scared him off.
No, he scared himself off. He liked the loop he made, but what he realized his vision for what he wanted to do. He's like, I want this to be like 80s, 90s stuff. He doesn't have any idea about music theory. I can't teach him about chords. So he's starting bare bones. He's like, explain it to me like a 5-year-old. So I'm like, okay, well, you need a keyboard and the MIDI keyboard will trigger these things, and MIDI stands for, and he's like, I had no idea. I just wanted to make 90s stuff that felt good. And I was like, yeah. It's fantastic that you guys have that community though. But ironically, I showed him a video that someone was making a beat in Reaper and he was smiling, and so we'll see where he goes and how far he wants to take it.
Yeah. Oh man, music is an interesting space because Reaper does not have all those built-in things. It obviously does have stuff, like it's got a synth, it's got a basic sampler, resamplomatic. You can do stuff with that. If you have content, you can throw it in there and actually deal with things in a music way. But it doesn't actually have like the big libraries that so many other things do, like Cubase, like Logic, Digital Performer, even Sonar. On that document, I was really happy to see Sonar get a couple of different shout outs for being, hey, this is a good free digital audio workstation if you want to, if you need to learn something that is good. But yeah, that also has these libraries. But yeah, music is a crazy space to be in. And sometimes that ocean can look and feel a little too deep when you're dipping your toes in there.
Yes. Yeah, I find myself, for answering your question, I found myself like on the Cubase website, since I'm a Cubase user, Steinberg website, for that that make Cubase software, and found a couple things on there from learning what they're doing with their technology that they're putting out. But I found that going through a couple different plugin newsletters that are just fantastic. One of them being Eventide, and the other being Slate Digital. And Slate Digital has this thing called it's like a Sonic Academy where you learn about EQ and a different process for different genres of music, from hip hop to rock. They got Chris Lord Alge, Just Blaze, other popular electronic producers, of how they approach different ways to their tracks and creativity. And I've just been finding that very informative. The Eventide stuff they've just been kind of doing live sessions in terms of like video calls and talking about certain things that their products can do. And I've been digging a little bit into that. But the plugin scene is another one I was looking for that I really, really like a lot. And I'm going to find it in just a second to see if it comes up, but I doubt it. Oh, yeah, it is Kush Audio. Kush Audio. There's this guy on there, and it's called After Hours with UBK, and they talk about like different panning techniques, even some that I haven't heard before, and like trying stuff that's different, delays and reverbs, and it's really interesting. Yeah, that one's been my most favorite in terms of like just information currently right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes those. I mean, there is so much good information there. I've been on the Steinberg forums a bit, and they always seemed really good. I don't use Cubase, but I do have Dorico, and it's been very helpful there. And of course, like all these different places, I'm looking at Kush Audio, and I don't have any Kush Audio stuff. But of course, like the stuff that they've got is like, okay, you've got compressors and reverbs and whatnot.
The Omega's great. The Clariphonic, I'm still not accustomed to just yet, but the Omega's great.
Ooh, okay. I'm looking at it. Ooh, this looks cool. 70s transistor clipping. I'm into that. Ooh, old school. Nice. What else is going on when it comes to the online learning stuff? I mean, you've got these different places that are set up. You could always just sort of like do some ad hoc searching. Man, just searching through Twitter and Facebook recently has actually saved me a couple of different times. Like, that's been really useful. I'm trying to think, is there anything else that's really worth mentioning right now? Either something new or something sort of old and reliable that you've done for years?
Oh, thinking about like just typical books maybe that I've like kind of downloaded, like PDFs, bought on the store. Those have come in handy for some things. I was in a workshop on Sunday about this. So Academy of Scoring Arts had something with Tim Davies. He's an orchestrator and a composer, and they had, just for the members at a free tier membership, was doing the writing, recording, and orchestrating for strings. And he was going over the Frozen cue that I guess Christoph Beck had written for the opening of Frozen. I think it was Frozen or Frozen 2. I can't recall. It was giving some very interesting articulation and technique things that are happening, especially right now with the COVID, in terms of seating arrangements and how it's changed for certain players to kind of talk to one another based off of changes. So there was some notes where, I don't use staccato on every type of notation and finale. I write staccato like straight, because if they have to change it over 32 bars, that's a lot of time wasted. So instead, they could just scribble it out and say that if it was a change of something that we're not doing staccato on the live session. How he doesn't wear earphones because they're kind of loud. He just kind of has some kind of small earbuds in their ear because he's just doing conducting and kind of just wants to be there in the moment for such. So yeah, Academy of Scoring Arts, even if I signed up, and they got some good library of information from their previous things that they were in person with in Burbank when they had them, to now being virtual, and it was pretty good. And that was Sunday. That was yesterday.
Wow, that is really cool. That stuff totally escaped me. I got to say, like, there were actually a couple things that they were doing earlier in the year that were really cool too.
Hmm.
But yeah, I totally forgot about this. Thank you for reminding me about it. I should pay attention because they have done a couple of these nice weekend sessions, and you can do it even at the free tier. They do have their expensive tier, which is $250 a year, which I mean could be worthwhile if you're really into that. They have a big vault of stuff and access to these different discounts. But if you're not up for that, they do have a free chamber tier and being able to access all this stuff that they've
Yeah.
been doing. That's really awesome.
Yeah, I highly suggest at least attending one of them. The ones I attended in person have been always great. I curate the ones I decide I really want to go to. I don't go to all of them, and it gets quite expensive too. But you used to have coffee and mingle time and all that stuff. But the virtual one was pretty decent, and definitely looking forward to more in store that they have.
Great. Awesome. Let's move on from this particular education topic. And maybe we should talk about gear because everyone loves talking about gear, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh my God, gear. Okay. So I'm going to be just a dork and say something that I just want to say to everyone, which is iPad 2s are cheap. So this is my iPad 2. It is friggin' cheap. It works. It still works as a MIDI instrument. This thing is 7 years old.
Wow.
And it's great. I can do all the stuff that I want to do with controllers and faders and all that stuff. I just want to rail about this for a bit because I see this actually all the time on different forums, on Facebook groups. Hey, I'm interested in doing something with faders. Hey, I'm interested in doing something with an XY touchpad. Oh, I want to do something with sliders for MIDI CC information. You can buy a used iPad for literally $20 because no one cares about iPad 2s anymore. They just don't. Apple doesn't care about them. They only get updated up to iOS 9 or something. So they're effectively useless for modern tablet media consumption. No one cares about them. You're just grabbing these things for a song. But man, they're still so effective if all you're dealing with is sending MIDI data to a computer. This thing works. It's so good. I don't get why more people just don't do this all the time. Like, am I taking crazy pills? Why aren't musicians just snapping these up by the truckload and saying, hey, I'm going to use this and I can program this to be whatever I want that I can touch on a screen with free apps or maybe $3 apps or whatnot, sending MIDI information. It's great. Why aren't people just doing this more often?
It might be an ignorance thing, and it might be a lazy thing. I'm just gonna keep it real with you. I only know about it because my mentor had one, but I didn't know they were $20 now. That's fantastic. But
they are so cheap. Like honestly, a friend of mine got an iPad 3, which has the Retina display. That was the first gen with the Retina display, and he got it for $50. And it was like,
Yeah.
oh, and it's like totally nicked up, but the screen perfectly works. The
That's all
touch
that
screen
matters.
perfectly works. You have to use the old 30-pin iOS connector, but you could send MIDI. You've got MIDI information. It's great.
That's awesome. I mean, are you using like Lemur or what are you using for setting MIDI information over, or using something else?
There are two apps I use. One
Okay.
is TouchOSC.
TouchOSC,
Mostly
that was the
because
other
that's
one.
kind of the standard. And also, there's a couple of contact instruments that I use that actually have nice big TouchOSC templates that you could load in. So Ember Violin. Those
Ooh.
Ember libraries, really cool. And they have a TouchOSC template that you could load up and be like, oh, you can have your finger deal with dynamics, but also bow position. So if you want to do more of like an on the bridge sound, and you could smoothly go there over the course of a line. You know, just sort of like nudge your finger over it a little more to the right while you're dealing with the dynamics. And then other sort of key switches onto the side of the template. It's great.
Yeah.
Besides that, I actually have one called S1 MIDI trigger that I do for my own personal stuff.
Okay.
And that one's like $3. But the nice thing about it is that I can quickly edit stuff on the iPad. So TouchOSC, it relies on you to edit on your computer and then load it to your iPad. But if I'm doing something really quick where I'm like, oh, I just want to add a button that does a couple of values of CC21, bam. You could just edit, add button, CC21 value, boom, I'm done. And it's great, very quick. So yeah, S1 MIDI trigger. It's really cool, which is, you know, it's just, that's actually what's currently on here. That's S1 MIDI trigger.
Okay.
But I mean, I use this for everything. I feel like so many people don't realize that you can use these old ass tablets. They're not useless. They're more than 5 years old, and they're great for just sending MIDI information out, which is really all you need to do for a lot of stuff.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely think it's an ignorance thing. I'm wondering if I have to read the MIDI files to be able to be a programmer of good MIDI information.
Wait a minute, do you have, is that a hard copy of the MIDI files?
It sure is.
Oh my God, it is.
Super bright on that one, but yeah. Do I need to read this to be able to program? Because you know, this is the question. This is probably why you're wondering why, but they're probably like, look, I only know CC1, CC7, CC11, and that's all. But like, what are you thinking?
Well, I don't think you need to. I mean, I would say that there is such thing as a best practice, and if you did stuff, if you want to do things best practice, then yes, reading something like the MIDI files or any other thing that is, you know, kind of encyclopedic. MIDI files I read, oh my God, I think I first was exposed to that book 20 years ago. And it's still a really good book. But the way that MIDI works these days, people are assigning anything to anywhere. If you want, you could use CC, I don't know, use CC21 for stuff. Use CC65 for stuff. Yes, 65 is supposed to be for your sostenuto pedal. But who has sostenuto pedals? Well, okay. Technically, I have a sostenuto pedal. But, you know, it's just so easy nowadays with, especially with things like contact instruments.
Yeah.
If you want to assign something to something, you right-click, MIDI learn, and then you move a fader or hit a button or whatnot. So if you just want to do it, I mean, that's really the thing. You just having this idea, this mindset of the contact instrument will allow me to alter all of these things in real time. Anything, almost anything. If I can right-click on it, right-click on a slider, right-click on a knob, I'm going to assign this to something like 5. Which is typically portamento, but I'm not using it for portamento. I'm using it for this cool growl control here on this contact instrument because I want to use that growl thing and I want to have access to it right now while I'm playing something as opposed to having to play it in later.
Right.
You know, so it's just so nice. Like knowing that MIDI is something that you can play with, I think is great. iPad and all of these cool things when it comes to MIDI, that just allows me to be more playful while I'm writing music, while I'm doing sound design, because I'm always using contact instruments for sound design as well. You know, there's a lot of really cool things like, I don't know, Gravity comes to mind as a really cool sort of sound design-y / music type of sound library. And being able to edit stuff like that and just perform all these sound effects with faders and touchscreen. It's so easy. It's great. And it's not expensive to get into. It really isn't.
You're saying the tools enable the creativity even more. And it sounds like since it's so cheap, you could probably get, you know, if you get one for the studio, you could probably get one to read that game audio Bible, but, you know, on the other, right?
That's true. Yeah, I mean, reading it on the tablet, that makes sense. I actually do have a more modern iPad because you know, I am working on iPad apps and I have to know what it actually looks like on a on a somewhat more modern device, something that actually has a Retina display, for example. But yeah, geez, old iPads are really good. They are really good. People should just have them.
Yeah. It's funny. I didn't know they were that cheap. I thought I was going to get one. I think I was going to get the iPad 3 and that was going to run me like $200. And I was like, oh, I just want to read on it. But I mean, if I can read on one that's $20, I'll go that route too and do some MIDI stuff as well.
Let's see. I mean, I'm looking at these like, okay, Apple iPad 2s. Like, yeah, I'm seeing like buy it nows, 55, 50, 30, 35, okay, 39. So yeah, but you can get them for buy it nows under 50 for an iPad 2, which is really the one that you should get. The iPad 1 is so much worse than the iPad 2.
Yeah.
The iPad 2, just 1 year difference, but that thing is actually still usable for even audio work. So get an iPad 2. Yeah, I'm seeing a bunch of right now on eBay, buy it now 50, working in condition. And if you look around, you'll be able to get it for less than that. So go for it.
Yeah, it's actually cheaper than this toy keyboard I have.
Oh my
that I've
God.
had since a child. This thing is like $70 on eBay. So yeah, it enables my creativity, but yeah, you get a whole new cool thing for multiple uses. At least I put 2 up because I was going to say 2, but multiple uses for less than that little toy keyboard there.
Oh man, it's true. It really is true. Are you actually using that toy keyboard for any cool stuff recently? Like, have you actually sampled it, or is it?
Last month when we were on the show, I think I might have mentioned I was doing Metroidvania Jam and things like that. So that was helpful to get my ideas out and then go into the tracker, and which I was using Open MPT at the time, and flesh out my ideas and kind of get stuff there. And then I realized it's actually really cool to just kind of flesh out some quick melody ideas. I don't have to pull up any quick virtual piano instrument. I just like flick this thing in. Got this. I'm playing some stuff. It plays Green Sleeves at any tempo. It's got that old. It could change. Let's go back to the piano. Can add some vibrato. Okay, stop playing. There we go. I remember. Add some drums. Getting some ideas. I can hear what the like old drum sounds might kind of be like. And it uses, so a little history about this. Unisonic was making that, they partnered with Yamaha. So this has a part of like a Yamaha chip in it, which is why the drum sound, that snare
man.
and that sine drum sounds, it's because these are like Yamaha like chips integrated with this keyboard. So it's perfect. Like I said, I've had this since I was, I want to say like 5 years old, and I always knew. And I thought I was gonna like, oh, I'm gonna change the outputs. I'm gonna make this into MIDI one day and do all this stuff. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. I don't have the time for it. But now it's coming to the point where, like you said, I can sample it, throw it through a big reverb if I want to. Just flesh out some ideas from Metroidvania Jam if I'm using tracker stuff or non-tracker stuff. It's just really quick to kind of hear what I want it to be like, since it's going to sound like that overall. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, it's fantastic. So this is my best friend.
Mm-hmm. So nice. So glad to hear that. I mean, it's just nice having cool different things. I mean, this is kind of related to. Some of the stuff that's going on in that Bible for getting a game audio job. Is there were definitely a lot of things that I was looking at that was sort of leaning into how you establish yourself. But part of that is also defining yourself and having a really strong sense of who you are and what you're actually able to give. What are you able to give to game audio? What are you able to give to the game? And part of what it is for you is this old keyboard and those sounds and those enabling you to do stuff. And part of what it is for me is, hey, I feel like I can do cool stuff with this old iPad, So, I think there's like a connection there, and that's something that I think will remain meaningful for a long time. Probably now more than ever with how people are really separated. It actually does take a lot of work now to establish yourself and convey your identity now that everyone or most everyone is remote and when they're working on stuff together.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Having that unique voice definitely counts.
Yeah. Man, we're actually getting kind of close to the end of the episode.
Oh,
It's almost an hour here. Let's see.
check that out.
What should we talk about? We ended the last episode a little quickly. Sorry about that. But we one of the things that ended up being sacrificed was talking about what we're consuming. What is the cool thing right now? Is there anything that you've been consuming lately? A cool game. I know you've already mentioned consuming the Game Audio Bible
Yeah.
on your Nook. But what else are you doing?
I've actually just been diving into like some more music listening and like studying, checking out some Jeff Beal, House of Cards music and some Dark opening themes, like the TV show Dark that's on Netflix, and in terms of like that band and their style. And then I've been playing some Fallen Order and studying some kind of implementation because my buddy actually worked on the implementation for that game. So just seeing what, the hard work that he did with Gordy Hobb and the team of the score for Fallen Order, as well as still Breath of the Wild, and just kind of conflating and just doing some deep listening, but not hard listening. Whereas, and I have a notebook and I'm writing everything down like how I typically would do, just kind of absorbing it naturally and seeing what comes out of it in the next projects that I kind of tackle and see what kind of comes through that.
That's cool. Nice. Yeah, I've been trying to do a little bit more music listening too, but I guess it's also connected to the education thing. So I've been looking at a couple of different composers and how they're conducting themselves on social media. One of the more interesting ones that I came across was Lauren Balfe, who is, of course, a pretty good current movie, film, TV score composer. And what he's been doing every now and then, every few weeks, he'll actually put a couple of cues up, and not just the audio for it, but video, but scores, conductor score, parts for each of these things. It'll be like a big zip. In addition to those scores and parts, stems from those recording sessions. It's like, wow, that's actually really cool. So I actually downloaded a couple of weeks ago some of these materials, audio stems, scores for his score for the show His Dark Materials, which came out last year. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. It's a pretty good score, pretty good TV show. I'm somewhat aware of the books, mostly through friends. But being able to listen to these recording sessions and read through the scores has been actually really nice. Just fun, kind of relaxing. Hey, this is how he did this particular figure. That's cool. Here's this big thematic sort of recapitulation thing. Oh yeah, that sounds pretty cool too. It's been nice doing that. And this kind of aligns from some film score study that I was actually doing last month, where I was trying to do some really close listening and studying of both Back to the Future and The Matrix. So,
Wow.
Going from those things, which are like big and rich and, I mean, really rich compositionally. Obviously, Back to the Future is fantastic. All those great chords, all those great harmonies, like just bam, big medians and those magic chords, and like it's so cool. And then you've got Don Davis on Matrix, which is, sort of blurring the line between sort of film music and modern concert art music of the early 2000s, with the extended techniques and the aleatory and all the crazy subdividing of the ensembles and whatnot. Going from those into a modern TV score in the form of His Dark Materials has actually been really cool. And just sort of listening to those things back to back to back like that, it's been fun, really refreshing, really educational and edifying too.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like sometimes having those materials are like, it's like gold right now. I'm for sure, like, to understand like like positionings you can hear in the recordings, and then just it's all like breaking it down, which I wanted to mention. I actually, as a follow up to what I was excited about last time when Alex introduced us to Inphonic, and I checked out the Rhymecast and the player, and I downloaded like just a track from Crusader of Senti made by Atlas, and I can mute the channels and just hear the bass line, and then
That's
I can hear
nice.
the other part, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling very studious right now, whereas then I can just dive even more because Fubar does it, and you can do it with the Super Nintendo. Rhymecast is specifically for doing Sega Genesis or Master System type of tracks, which is still great, but Fubar does it for all of that stuff that you can at least have the original files for. So I find so much value in the sense those would be stems, right, from that
Yeah.
time that's just the bridge right there, because we had that from there, was trying to emulate that sound but couldn't based off of the limitations, to now like where we are today with modern styles and such, and having stems and the score to even like be in front of you, which typically doesn't happen if the studio owns it. So that's gold. That's gold. So we got gold in both places, I think.
It's true. There's so many cool things to learn from. It is worth noting some of these things are huge. I mean, I'm looking at these things that I downloaded of his Dark Materials. What is this? His Dark Materials, a Lithiometer, theme, full score, 1.6 gigs. I mean, most of it is that 1.5 gigs worth of stems,
Yeah.
Bass trombone, of course, that's 33 kilobytes, all these different parts scores. It's great having all these parts, super useful. And a MIDI file, and these stems. Like, oh man, so much cool stuff, but my hard drive is feeling it. My hard drive is just packed. So
it sounds like you're going to have to buy a different hard drive dedicated for these things that are going to come out over time, and be like, this is the orchestrator package hard drive.
oh man, it's such useful information. Yeah. All right, but it's already been a fantastic hour.
Yes.
Man, thank you, Chase, for joining me on this conversation. Thank you for the people in the chat as well. Man, Damien, Michael, thanks for hanging out with us. I see a couple of other people still watching us, both on Twitch and on YouTube. Even if you're not the most talkative, we still appreciate you and are very thankful that you are actually checking us out, watching us, and listening to us here on a fortnightly basis. Thank you so much. If this is your first time checking us out, well, guess what? You can actually follow us on YouTube. You can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter, where we announce when these shows are happening. You can follow us on Twitch. Just follow us wherever we are, and we're going to keep on going and giving you new episodes as we are able to. And maybe even next time with our cohort, Alex and Mike. Where are you guys? Where are you guys? I know you're out there. They're probably just listening to us right now, thinking, "Oh man, you thought that I actually had a birthday to celebrate or something? What? No, I'm just taking a break, and I'll just listen to you guys." Oh man, but seriously,
what's that?
Yeah, seriously, thank you to everyone for watching and listening. And until next time, bye.
Bye, everyone.